I want to back into how you profile those athletes with the shocks and springs, and also just like how you, I know you've talked a little bit about like looking at the breaking RFD versus impulse and maybe using that as one way. But yeah, I want to see like how do you objectively go in that group and decide what people need? I know this is hard.
No, it's a great question because I think I just posted something on this. Profiling is very trendy in our industry.
Yeah.
And in part for good reason. Having a framework, having a heuristic that you can make decisions on is real life, right?
Yeah.
That's what we all have to do. And it lets us do our job a little better and a little faster. So frameworks and profiling are good. With that said, look, we have a lot of these like 2x2 matrices. So we have a quadrant, and which quadrant are they in? I love it. I've done a ton of it. I use it to this day to a degree. But those quadrants aren't real. They're not four distinct things. It's a continuum in all those directions. None of these things are shocks and springs aren't a discrete place. It changes from one to the other. It's all a continuum. And that's most of our profiling. So profiling's great as long as you recognize underneath that it's not distinct this versus that, right? The guy that went from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, what about the two guys that are right on that border between the two quadrants that are only off by whatever test you're doing by small percentages? Are they really that different versus the guys that are like way on the extremes of that quadrant? So love profiling, love it. Just come at it knowing it's a continuum. So you have to use your art. And that's why I share this. Great. I did the profile. They fit in this profile. Don't stop watching. Don't stop listening to your athlete going, hey, coach, I think I really need some of that stuff. Or, you know, my first profiling of an athlete is when you sit down and talk with them.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay? That's where profiling is. You sit down and you talk with them, and you're going to learn a whole lot about who they are as people, what they need from coaching. And they've probably figured out some things about what they need from training. The guy that comes in and hates squatting, well, if you start listening and really explore, you might find he made some good choices. The guy that loves squatting and knows he needs to do a crap ton of it, he maybe figured out he needs that. So profiling, start there. But to the weeds less, I want to look at a couple things. Are they strong enough? Okay, so start at the basics. Are they strong enough? And how do you know if they're strong enough? Well, there's a couple different ways to go. You can take some body weight things, great. You could use DSI, great. But you better have some way of thinking about strong enough. And I hate lift tests because to me, and I was a weightlifting coach. I've done a lot of those. I like it. Using a lift as a test of force is the wrong answer. A lift is an expression of the strength you have. It's not a measure of strength because that back squat has technique. So let's start there. And I mean, I know it sounds kind of obvious, but I think we forget this. So jumping in my head, we had an athlete a couple years ago I had just started working with. So she's out here for a short time, couple weeks. She was a track cyclist. Pretty good. Olympic gold medalist.
The one you just posted on there?
Yeah. Yeah. She's not a normal human.
Yeah.
Very unique. I mean, Kelsey was able to go from not being in the sport of cycling to 3 years winning a gold medal.
Wow.
She is going right now from not having done the sport of bobsled to a couple months ago, she did a push camp, and now she's on their World Cup team with a shot at the Olympics in a couple months.
Wow.
These are not normal things.
Yeah.
Anyways, so she's a good example because she had a friend who was there as well, who was a professional hockey player, female, playing in Sweden, who could lift the house. And she's there lifting, doing great. And Kelsey's going, I'm not that strong. Well, when we broke out a mid-thigh pull and we tested both of them, Kelsey came out stronger, but she was a bad squatter. And she felt like she wasn't strong, especially compared to Erica, who was this hockey player and really strong and, you know, good athlete, good person. But it was a great example. Like, here's somebody going, oh, I'm not strong. And if a coach had used a squat as the test, would say, you're not strong. Well, that wasn't it at all. So are they strong enough? Okay. great, pretty basic. More importantly, in most cases, now we need to look at how they're using and expressing power in other movements. Okay. So for me, my most basic profiling has always been around rate of force development. Can they use the strength they have? For me, I was influenced back. Oh man, this is Bosco's work. This is Tahani and Schmidt-Bleicher. Al Vermeil, when I was a young coach, somehow I got connected to him through weightlifting. His son was weightlifting. And man, I called him up as a young coach, and he's at the Bulls winning all these championships. And he spends 45 minutes on the phone with me, just sharing all this stuff that took me down some whole new pathways. So looking at that, I started with squat jump versus counter movement jump. Mm-hmm. And it's not because of elasticity. It's not because you're storing elastic energy. It's primarily because of a difference in rate of force development. Today, we can do that through some different means, through force plates, give us some better measures. But rate of force development's one. So how well do they use that? Same concept as DSI, right? If you got a whole lot of strength and in a fast movement, you can only a little bit, I got a big gap. I don't need to make you stronger. I need to teach you how to use it. Vice versa, if you got this much strength and you're using most of it in this fast action, we can work on plyos all day long and other stuff, but it ain't going to get you better till you get stronger.
Right.
So that's one of the sides on that quadrant. That's one of the accents. Those that use more velocity and those that use more force. And this, going back to those like people I talked about, Bosco's work and Tahani got some interesting stuff. Those same athletes, that profile, not only does it tell you what they need for performance, but I think for me, more importantly, it tells you what they can and can't tolerate. Mm-hmm. The guys that are speed guys, they can't tolerate that much strength work. They need strength work maybe every 7 to 10 days. Like there's some variables in here, but they don't need it that often. They need a heavy strength exposure, probably with limited reps. And for them, it's not even the really big numbers. 80% is pretty good, 7 to 10 days. But they need some speed work. They need some stuff that's fast every 3 to 5 days. Otherwise, they're falling off, right? Their system ain't firing the right way. On the other hand, you got guys that are on that force side, right? They need that strength. If they haven't lifted in 7 to 10 days, they're probably dropping off their power. They need that strength, heavy stimulus, maybe not a ton of volume, but they need a stimulus probably every 3 to 5 days. So there's this big paradox we have. The exact thing you need for more performance output, you probably can't tolerate in very large doses or very often. Yeah. And that for me was like, that was a game changer, because it's kind of intuitive that, oh, if I need this, I should spend every day working on this, right? I need to improve my speed side of the equation. I need to work on that neuro side. Great, let's do it 3 days a week. Well, that big lineman, that guy that needs that strength, yeah, he needs to fire a little faster. But if I start doing it to him all the time, he's going to be hurt. His system's going to be burnt out. He ain't performing well. So the exact thing you need, you probably can't handle a lot of. And this comes into some of the art of what we do. You got to watch and use your eyes. Okay, so that was a lot to go through, just one axis in that. The other axis, RSI, reactive strength. Okay, so there's guys that can jump out of the gym, but they can't do it fast. Right? There's reactive strength, and that's another quality. It's related but different. And for me, those two axes give me a pretty clear view of how they use their rate of force development and use their force capacity, and how well they can tolerate fast stretch shortening cycles and use some elasticity. So those two give me a pretty good profile of what a guy's going to work on to get better. But kind of back to our almost maximal tolerable imbalance, how much of the thing they're not good at they can take. And probably for me today, guys, the not overloading the wrong thing is probably more helpful than giving them more of the right thing.
Let's go deeper. Because that's huge. Because honestly, like if you think about how most people are profiling, they're doing a level of physical profiling. Let's say a mid thigh pull, a counter movement jump, and a drop jump. Like let's say that can you produce high forces? Can you do it through stretch shortening cycle? Can you produce it fast? What most people jump to is like, okay, whatever they're weak at, we just need to do double of.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that if they're not good at it, that's a quality that they can't tolerate in high doses. So you're actually putting them at risk by doing significant volumes of it to get them better at it. But what would be the counter to that? So keep what they're good at, and then microdose or slowly expose them to the thing they're not good at.
Yeah. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
and again, it depends on the level of athlete. If they're a young developing athlete, all these things are still going up. So I'm not going to overvalue profiling in a young athlete. I mean, it's a continuum, right? It becomes more important as they get to a higher level or higher age. But yes, I think, and my experience has been that it works better if I can give them small microdosed exposures of that thing they need. Um, and I do it at the right time of year. So let's start simple. During a training week, a training week, I have some days I think of as stimulus days and others as accumulating days. So on a stimulus day, you're going to do the thing you're good at. That's where it fires up your nervous system the way it works. And so if you're that contractile guy, you're going to get a heavy lift in because it doesn't wear you out the same way. Now, I got to manage volume and everything else, but it still stimulates you. You feel more powerful in the days after you had that big squat or whatever, big deadlift, big something. If you're the speed guy, the velocity biased guy, you need something fast. You need those plyos. You need those high rate of force development things that make you feel good. And this goes back a little bit, guys, to that talk with the athlete. Again, one of my key questions when I'm talking with an athlete is you just finished the perfect workout. This was great. This is what you needed. This made you better. What did you do and how do you feel? And they're going to tell you probably where they are. Not always. There's some mistakes in there, but most of them are probably,
Yeah.
if they're older and they've trained, they're
Right.
going to tell you which it is.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
stimulus though, right? They know they feel good a certain way. So that's a stimulus day. An accumulation day is a day we're going to work on the thing we need to get better at. And if this is farther out of season, more GPP-ish or farther out, early off season, I might have 2 accumulation days during the week doing the thing you're bad at. We're going to do little bits of it and get better. As we get closer to season, if we get to a taper for our Olympic athletes or whatever, it's going to go the opposite. I'm going to get a little accumulation. And as I really get late in that taper, now the thing you're bad at, I might be skipping altogether probably during the taper, or it's a
Yeah.
really limited exposure every, man, some of those things you can expose them 10 days. Like we got to get out of going in weeks and months. Like use some art and figure out how far it is. So yeah, I think you load it heavier off season. Don't try to change them, but try to influence them, get them a little better. And as you go towards season, you get rid of that and you do what they're good at.